Welcome back to this special extended coverage of the Republican National Convention and their final night, where you will see and hear Donald Trump's acceptance speech and words to America that will live right here when he takes the stage later on this evening. We encourage your phone calls and comments on our next subject and more of what has transpired the last few days in Cleveland. You can join us right now at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-639-7629. Let's focus on some of the issues that have slipped through the conversations this week regarding unity, and of course the one that everybody has been talking about the last 24 hours. I'm joined once again by the host of the Steve Malzberg Show here from 7 to 8 Eastern Time, 10 o'clock also on the repeat weeknights, Steve Malzberg. All right, Steve, let's go and talk about Ted Cruz here. Delivers his speech last night. We're going to go ahead and get to everybody's phone calls here in a moment. He delivers his speech last night. He says, I'm basically not going to be the servile puppy dog for Donald Trump. He does not endorse Donald Trump last night, and at a breakfast then this morning, he continues his stance by saying this.
If you love our country and love your children as much as I know that you do, stand and speak and vote your conscience. Vote for candidates up and down the ticket who you trust to defend our freedom and to be faithful to the Constitution.
If we can't make the case to the American people that voting for our party's nominee is consistent with voting your conscience, is consistent with defending freedom and being faithful to the Constitution, then we are not going to win and we don't deserve to win. That's how you win elections.
All right, Steve. Ted Cruz says you insult my wife, you spread rumors about my father and the Kennedy assassination. Bets are off. What do you say?
Wow, wow, wow. First of all, he's trying to rationalize it this morning. I said vote your conscience, and if we can't convince that, that sounds great on a debate team. But this is the real world. I know he was a champion debater in college. This is the real world. And what he did last night, I agree with the great conservative Richard Viguerie, who said he committed political suicide. He proved my theory that he is unlikable and unelectable from the very beginning. He is now especially horrifically unelectable and unlikable for the future. He disappointed the Texas delegation. He disappointed many of his supporters throughout the country. And what he did was despicable. It was despicable. And then he mocked New York again, which I couldn't care less the fact that I'm from New York, and I know, Ed, you grew up in New York. But, you know, he had this double entendre when he criticized New York the first time, many people thought, and to go after the delegation again yesterday as if they were the only ones who were unhappy with what he was saying. He, as I hate to quote Ana Navarro of CNN, but as she said, to me she's a rhino, but as she said so eloquently, when you go to someone's party and you eat the food and you drink the wine, you don't, you know what, go to the bathroom on the carpet. And that's exactly what this man did. He's classless, and if you can't take, first of all, it was one of his PACs that unleashed a picture of Melania Trump naked in a pose shoot that she did,
which wasn't with his authority.
Top primary,
which wasn't with his authority.
And he, what's that? No, but
wasn't with his authority. He didn't approve it.
But he could have said, "That's despicable. Take it down, please." He said nothing, with a wink, wink, and a nod, nod. Then Trump put up the picture of his wife and his wife. So I think he started it. He's unlikable. He's done. He is done.
Let's put a couple things in there. I'm going to play devil's advocate with you. First of all, here, the New York delegation, I was born and raised in New York, too. I don't think he said anything negative last night about it when he said thank you to the New York delegation. I don't think that was anything insulting. Also, the Trump campaign knew 3 days ahead of time what he was going to say, and they didn't say anything about it. They let him do it. And by the way, let's talk about despicable here for a moment. Let's talk about the people on the floor last night who got in the face of Heidi Cruz and were insulting her last night. Come on, Steve, you don't do that to somebody's wife. Don't do that to somebody's wife.
Ed, how many people was it? Do you know?
No, I don't.
Was it 2?
Doesn't make a difference. One is enough.
It does make a difference. You're playing like CNN right now.
No, I'm not. I'm playing. Steve, what would you think if somebody insulted your wife?
You know what? They're not running for. They're not speaking at the convention. You don't attack anybody. That goes without saying. But you don't equate that to what Ted Cruz did. And just because the Trump campaign had the speech, they win on this. It was brilliant for them to let him speak. But he has no class. He showed that, and he proved that last night.
You think the people who insulted Heidi Cruz have class?
The 1 or 2? No, they don't. But
1 or 2, 3 or 4 or 5, what difference does it make, Steve?
How do you equate that, Ed?
What difference does it make, Steve, if it's 1 or 2?
What are you, Hillary?
Let me just also ask something real quick, Steve. If somebody insulted your wife and how she looked, how would you think? How would you feel?
I don't know. What's the context?
I'd be
I don't know.
insulted.
Who is it? Who is it? Does it mean that I would accept the election of Hillary Clinton, who would ruin the country for my child, and I would let that stand in the way? I don't think I would let it stand in the way.
Okay, so you wouldn't be offended?
I didn't say I wouldn't be offended. I said I wouldn't let, if someone insulted my wife, and I'm not married right now, would I then sacrifice what I believe as a constitutionalist? My whole shtick is I'm a constitutionalist. Would I then hand over the reins to a woman who will and who I know will trample the Constitution? No.
All right, let's go to the phone calls. 1-877-Newsmax. David from Sheboygan, Wisconsin. We talked about NATO a little bit earlier. David, you believe that Donald Trump is absolutely right about NATO. Tell us why.
Well, I think, Donald Trump is a businessman. Everybody keeps saying Donald Trump is a businessman. That's great, because Donald Trump is going to look at the balance sheet. If you want a strong nation, you have to have a financially sound nation. These wars are now economic wars. And, Donald Trump, what I would like to see Donald Trump do is take the national debt, instead of borrowing $1.1 trillion like Paul Ryan just approved on that last budget, we need to pay down $1 trillion a year. And to do that, we're going to have to hold our own against these countries that keep basically getting all kinds of American services for free.
David, thanks a lot for your call. Steve, do you think that Donald Trump threw a little fear into the European countries and the NATO members last night?
I hope he did. I mean, the world's changing. I'm not saying we abandon our alliances or abandon our commitments, but he's been pushing this from the beginning, and it's a legitimate point. These countries that have the money expect us to live up to our obligations, but won't live up to their simple financial obligations. They should be called out. And if this is his way of pushing them, as he knows how to push people because he is a businessman, then, more power to him.
All right, 1-877-Newsmax. Frank is in Van Nuys, California. Frank, you want to hear Donald Trump talk about issues and not just personal attacks, correct?
Correct. I want to hear him talk about the border in California. It is bankrupt in our state. We got these people coming across the border, having babies. The taxpayers pay for it. They get welfare. They get WIC. They get food stamps. Some hospitals had to shut down. And I want to hear him talk about our secured our country, too, the greatest country in the world. And I enjoy your show. I watch your show every day. And I say to you, God bless America.
All right, Frank, thanks so much. When we talk about the personal attacks, wouldn't you say at this point, Steve, it's time for Donald Trump? I know he loves to go off on a tear every now and then, but it's time to do away with these. Let's get away with them. Let's stop all these potentially despicable things saying about other people. Let's move on and talk to America about what this country needs to do. Yes?
Yeah, and by the way, I love debating with you. You and I go way, way back.
Long way back.
That's just the way I am.
People need to know that, too. Steve and I have known each other for over 25 years, so this is not like we're just throwing bonbons and rocks at each other, okay? We've been doing this a long time.
Long time. Sports world, political world, you name it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. He shouldn't be out there. I mean, I don't think it'll benefit him to give a zinger to Cruz. And other than that, I can't imagine that he would knock anybody else. As for specifically bringing up California, I don't think you could count on that. But certainly the border and the influence on the country and how it affects the country and immigration and building the wall, that's going to be a theme. So I think the previous caller will get some of his wish.
All right. Deborah from North Carolina. King, North Carolina is next. Deborah, you are all in for Donald Trump. You want to see him win, but what do you want to hear him say tonight? And here's something for you, Deborah. Don't give us cliches. Don't give us make America great again. What do you want to hear him say?
I want to hear him say that there isn't going to be two kinds of government or two kind of justice for the big people and the little people.
So you basically want to hear him talk about Wall Street. You want to hear him talk about things along those lines. Yes?
No, Hillary.
Yes.
Hillary.
I hear him admit, well, I know he's admitted it before, that Hillary Clinton shouldn't be in office. She should be in jail.
We've heard that before. What else do you want to hear? All right, Deborah, we're having a little bit of a problem with your phone. We thank you so much for the phone call. We'll take some more as the night goes on here. Steve, we move closer to Donald Trump. He is now going to have everything in his hands here after tonight. I'll give you 40 seconds and then we got to take a break, my friend. What do you think Hillary Clinton's going to fire back with next week?
Well, I mean, I know that she's going to say he's dangerous. She's going to make fun of him. She's going to tease him. He bankrupted his companies, which he didn't. Blah, 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 blah. But look, she's on the wrong side of the issue. She can't be trusted with national security. The FBI director told us that. And we know that she takes the side of the criminals against the cops because she's going to have the mothers, not of people who were not legitimately shot by cops, but where the law found that the cops had a right to defend themselves against the criminals. She's going to have their parents up there to speak. What message does that send? So, and on abortion and everything else, I think the country is with Donald Trump. They want change. They're not radical leftist socialists like Hillary. And I think it's going to be a very interesting couple of months, Ed, and you and I are privileged to cover it.
There you go. Steve is going to catch his breath for a couple of minutes because he's going to take a break. He will join us later on in the show. Hang tight, Steve. Now stay with us. Our special coverage from Cleveland kicks in, and as soon as Donald Trump takes the stage, you will see it. The acceptance speech will be here. Stay with us right here on Newsmax.